Nothing says happy marriage like your wife inviting her old boyfriend to dinner and expecting you to grin through it. I am Mark Bennett, 38 years old, co-owner of Bennett Electric, and apparently the biggest fool in suburban Michigan. Mark, you remember Tyler, do you not? Rachel's voice was sweet as syrup as she motioned toward the long, thin man at my dining table, eating my food, drinking my wine, and looking at my wife like she was dessert. Tyler Brooks, Rachel's college ex. The same Tyler who stole $2,000 from her parents' safe during Christmas break 15 years ago. The same Tyler who went in and out of rehab 3 times, then somehow showed up at Rachel's marketing firm 6 months back with a new job. Sure, I said, and I forced a smile. How is recovery going, Tyler? Rachel flashed me a warning look. Our daughters, Ava and Zoe, 15 and 13, shifted in their chairs. They are not dumb. They felt the tension in the room the way you feel a bad wire buzzing behind drywall. Great, actually, Tyler said, showing teeth a dentist probably charged like a luxury car. Rachel has been a huge support. Have you not, sweetheart? Sweetheart. In my house. At my table. Tyler has been working so hard on the Henderson account, Rachel said, brushing his arm with her hand. We have been putting in long hours. Long hours. Right. I had noticed the long hours, the weekend emergencies, the out-of-town conferences that never seemed to turn into any real business. My brother picked that moment to show up late, like always. Daniel Bennett, the golden child. 2 years older, 6 inches taller, and blessed with that easy charm that helps people forget he has never truly earned much of anything. Sorry I am late, Daniel said, kissing Rachel on the cheek a little too familiar. Traffic was homicide. He shook Tyler's hand like they were old buddies, which felt strange since I had never told Daniel about Tyler. Then again, a lot about my family had felt strange lately. So, Tyler, Daniel said, settling into his chair, Rachel says you two have been working closely. The way he said it made my jaw lock up. There was a knowing tone there, like everybody was in on a joke, but me. Very closely, Tyler said. Rachel giggled. Giggled like a teenager, not a 36-year-old mother of 2. I watched my girls trade looks. Ava, my quick thinker, looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Zoe, the athlete, stared at her plate the way she stares at a finish line. I think we are making my husband jealous, Rachel said, loud enough for the whole table to hear. The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. That is when I felt it. The exact second something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped like a wire carrying too much current finally giving out. I stood up, slow and steady. The chatter stopped. Every eye was on me, waiting for the blow-up, the shouting, the scene that would make me the problem. Instead, I smiled. A real smile. Probably the first honest one on my face in months. You know what? I said, quiet and calm. I think I will let you all enjoy the rest of dinner without me. I walked out of the dining room, out of the house, and into the garage, where I keep my tools, my truck, and apparently whatever was left of my pride. Behind me, I heard the soft buzz of voices. They were likely deciding I was a poor sport, that I could not take a joke, that I was paranoid. Sitting in the dark cab of my truck, I did not think about their opinions. I thought about circuits, about overloads, about what happens when you push a system too far and then act shocked when it burns the whole place down. They wanted to play games. Fine. I have worked with live power for 20 years. I know exactly how to make things spark. Monday morning came with gray drizzle that made everything look used up. I pulled into Bennett Electric before dawn, like I have for 15 years. Our building sits in the industrial strip most folks drive past without a glance. Brick warehouses, chain-link fences, and the kinds of shops that keep the town running while everyone else sleeps. Mike Carter was already there, bent over a set of blueprints with a coffee that smelled like it could strip paint. Mike has been my right-hand man since the day I started the company with Daniel, back when we were young and dumb enough to think family beats business. Morning, boss, Mike said without looking up. You look rough. Feel worse, I said, pouring coffee from a pot that tasted like it had been sitting since the Clinton years. Mike, I need you to pull some files for me. What kind of files? He asked. The kind that show every job Rachel's company has done for us in the past year. Every invoice. Every work order. Every time they stepped foot in this building. Mike's eyebrows went up, but he did not pry. That is one thing I value about him. 23 years in the United States Navy taught him when to follow orders and when to mind his own business. While Mike dug through records, I headed to the security room. We put cameras across the building 2 years ago after a string of break-ins in the area. What most people did not know is the system keeps digital footage going back 18 months. I spent the next 3 hours reviewing video and matching it against the work orders Mike stacked on my desk. What I found made my coffee taste like battery acid. Rachel's so-called emergency inventory checks always happened on nights when Daniel claimed he was out of town. Tyler's equipment inspections lined up perfectly with the times I was out on job sites across the county. And the two of them together, in my building, in my office, going through my files, my computer, my life. The real punch landed when I pulled Daniel's travel charges from the company credit card. Those out-of-town trips he bragged about, half of them never happened. The hotel charges were local. The restaurant receipts were from places 10 minutes from Rachel's office. My brother and my wife. The two people I trusted most, working together to tear down what I built. I printed everything. Every receipt. Every time-stamped image. Every piece of proof that matched what my gut already knew. Then I called my sister, Erin. Erin Bennett Walker is an attorney, the kind who wears a suit that fits like a decision and eats opposing counsel for breakfast. She is also the only person in my family who has never asked me for money, never expected me to mop up her mistakes, and never treated me like the family disappointment. Mark, her voice was sharp with concern. It is barely 9 in the morning. What is wrong? I need to see you today, I said. And Erin, bring everything you know about divorce law in Michigan. Silence stretched long enough that I checked the screen to make sure the call had not dropped. How bad is it? She asked at last. Bad enough that I am about to learn who my real friends are. We met at a diner on the far side of town. Strong coffee, homemade pie. The kind of place where no one cares about your problems as long as you tip. Erin walked in all business. Briefcase, power suit, an expression that could freeze water. I laid it all out. The dinner, the footage, the fake trips, the pattern of lies that ran back for months. She listened without interrupting, taking notes in neat, precise handwriting. You are certain? She said when I finished. Because once we start, there is no going back. Rachel will fight dirty. Daniel will try to squeeze you out of the company. People will choose sides. I thought about it. Most of my friends were really Rachel's friends, or couple friends who would rather drop the suddenly single guy than live in the middle of a split. Let them, I said. I would rather know where I stand than keep living a lie. Erin nodded and snapped open her briefcase. Then let us light the fuse. The next 2 weeks moved like a chess match between professionals. Every move planned. Every counter move expected. Erin filed the divorce on a Thursday morning, citing adultery and abandonment. By Thursday afternoon, Rachel was calling my phone every 10 minutes, her voice climbing higher with each voicemail. I did not answer. I was busy with what Erin called financial containment. Joint credit cards canceled. Bank accounts frozen. The house, titled in my name from my grandfather's inheritance, secured with new locks and a temporary order that kept Rachel from entering without supervision. Daniel tried honey instead of heat. He showed up at the office Friday with coffee and donuts like we were still brothers and not business partners on opposite sides of a war. Mark, we need to talk, he said, dropping into the chair across from me like he owned it, which technically he did, 40% worth. I am listening. This thing with Rachel, it is complicated. Adultery usually is, I said. Daniel's face flushed a hard red. It is not what you think. Really? Because what I think is my brother and my wife have been sleeping together for months and using my company as their private hideout. Am I wrong? Silence buzzed between us like a high-voltage line. Daniel stared at his hands, and for a second I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I want to buy you out, he said at last. Come again? Your shares in the company. I will pay you fair market value. You take the cash, start fresh somewhere else. Clean slate for everyone. I leaned back and studied the golden child who had been handed most things in life and was now reaching for the last thing I still had. What is fair market value, Daniel? I had it appraised. 200,000. I laughed. Out loud. 200? Daniel, we cleared 400,000 in profit last year alone. The building is worth more than 200. Add the equipment, the client list, the active contracts. You are offering about 20 cents on the dollar. It is a fair offer considering the circumstances. What circumstances? The part where you have been sleeping with my wife. Daniel shot to his feet fast enough to knock over his coffee. Enough. You want to play hardball? Fine. But remember, I know where all the bodies are buried in this company. I know the corners we cut on the Henderson retrofit. I know about the inspection reports we massaged on the hospital contract. You go to war with me, Mark, and you will lose everything. I smiled. The same calm smile I wore at that dinner 2 weeks back. The smile that means I know something you do not. Daniel, I said quietly, you just made a very big mistake. The recorder application on my phone had been running since he walked in. Every word, every threat, every admission of illegal nonsense. All of it, crisp and clear. Get out of my office, I said. And next time you plan to threaten me, you might want to check whether I am recording. The look on his face was worth every sleepless night. He did not take it well. I found that out at 2 o'clock in the morning when he chose to share his feelings by throwing a brick through my living room window. The security cameras caught it all. Daniel's truck in my driveway, his face lit by the street lamp. Daniel plucking a brick from my garden border and heaving it through glass like a teenage vandal instead of a 40-year-old business owner. I called the police and filed a report. I added vandalism to the growing stack of charges that were going to make his life complicated. Then I called my insurance company, my lawyer, and a local news station that loves stories about respectable men behaving badly. But Daniel was not done. The next morning, he marched into the office with 2 guys I did not recognize. Big men with the kind of muscles you get from prison yards, not gyms. We need to settle this, Daniel announced, shouldering past Mary at the front desk. She looked one breath away from calling emergency services. It is all right, Mary, I said. Why not take an early lunch? She grabbed her purse and made herself scarce. Smart. Nice friends, I said, nodding at Daniel's backup. Let me guess. You met them at one of those networking events you are always talking about. Shut up, Mark. You think you are clever with your recordings and your lawyers, but you forgot one thing. What is that? I still own 40% of this company. That means I have access to everything, including the safe. The safe. The fireproof box with the combination lock where we keep the sensitive documents, the backup drives, the emergency cache. Daniel has known the code since the day we bought it. You are going to open that safe, he said. And you are going to hand me every copy of every recording, every document, every piece of evidence you think you have. Then you are going to sign the buyout papers I brought. I looked at the 2 muscle-bound gentlemen flanking him. They looked bored, like this was just a Tuesday. And if I do not, I asked, then my friends will remind you why family loyalty matters. That is when Mike stepped in from the warehouse, clipboard in hand, wearing the expression that means business. Morning, boss, he said to me, then turned to Daniel. I did not know we were having a meeting. Private family business, Daniel said. Why do you not find something else to do? Mike glanced at me. I saw 23 years of United States Navy service behind his eyes. Actually, Mike, I said, I think you should stay. Daniel was just leaving. No, Daniel snapped, voice climbing. I am not leaving until. He did not finish. Mike moved quicker than a man his age should, sliding between us with a calm confidence that made Daniel's hired muscle suddenly fascinated by their own shoes. Gentlemen, Mike said, polite as a door greeter, there has been a misunderstanding. This is private property, and you were not invited. I am going to have to ask you to leave. The bigger one started to speak, but Mike raised a hand. Before you make any decisions you will regret, he said. You should know I already called the police. They are about 3 minutes out, Mike said. You can walk away now as free men, or you can explain to the officers why you are trespassing on private property with what looks like an attempt at extortion. Daniel's face ran through a few interesting shades. This is not over, Mark. Yeah, it is, I said. It ended the moment you chose to betray me. You just have not caught up yet. After they cleared out, Mike and I stood in the quiet of the front office, listening to distant sirens drift closer. Thank you, I said. Do not mention it, he replied. But, boss, upgrade the security here and put more cameras on your house. Already in motion, I said. Good. Something tells me your brother does not quit easy. He was right, but I do not, either. The board meeting landed on the calendar for the following Thursday. Bennett Electric had 3 shareholders, Daniel and I at 40% each, and our mother, Helen, holding the final 20% as the tiebreaker. It was supposed to protect family unity. Instead, it set the stage for a fight over the company's future. I spent the week preparing, not just collecting proof. I had been sitting on that for weeks. I was prepping for a war. Aaron walked me through the corporate bylaws, the same paperwork Daniel probably never bothered to read. Buried in the fine print was a clause allowing removal of a board member who engaged in conduct harmful to the company's reputation or financial stability. Helen arrived 20 minutes early on meeting day, dressed in black like it was a funeral. At 73, she was still sharp as a tack, and twice as dangerous if you crossed her. She built this business from nothing after my father died, and she had no patience for fools. "Mark," she said as she took her chair at the conference table, "I hope you know what you are doing." "I do. This is going to tear the family apart." "The family tore itself apart, Mom. I'm just cleaning up what is left." Daniel walked in right on time with a lawyer I did not recognize, a thin man in an expensive suit who looked like he specialized in making problems disappear. "Mother," Daniel said, kissing Helen's cheek. Then a curt nod my way. "Mark, let us begin," Helen said. "Daniel, you called this meeting." "That is right," his attorney said, opening a briefcase and pulling a thick stack of papers. "We are here to address the buyout proposal my client presented to Mr. Mark Bennett, an offer rejected without proper consideration." "I considered it," I said. "It was insulting." "The offer reflects fair market value based on current assessments," the lawyer went on. "As a gesture of goodwill, my client is prepared to increase by 10%. "How generous," I said. $220,000 for a company worth north of $1 million. Helen's eyebrows climbed. "Is that accurate, Daniel? You are offering your brother about 20 cents on the dollar?" "The circumstances require." "What circumstances?" Helen's voice could have cut glass. Daniel and his lawyer traded looks. "There have been personal matters that make it difficult for Mark and me to continue as partners," the attorney tried. "Personal matters?" Helen repeated. "You mean the fact that you have been sleeping with his wife?" The room went dead quiet. Daniel's face went white, then red, then white again. "I do not know where you heard." "I saw it on the security footage," Helen said evenly. "Mark showed me everything. Every late-night visit. Every faked business trip. Every lie for the last 6 months. Did you really think I would not learn the truth?" Daniel shot me a look full of hate. "You poisoned her against me." "I showed her the facts," I said. "That is different." Helen rose to her feet, palms flat on the table. "Daniel Bennett, as the controlling vote on this board, I am calling for a vote of no confidence. You violated your fiduciary duty, damaged the company's reputation, and betrayed your partner's trust. I move that you be removed from the board immediately." "You cannot do that," Daniel's lawyer snapped. "My client has rights." "Your client has the right to remain silent," I said, setting my phone on the table and pressing play on the recording from the week before. Daniel's voice filled the room, admitting to cutting corners, massaging inspection reports, and issuing threats. By the time it ended, the lawyer was already closing his briefcase. "I will need to confer with my client privately," he said. "Take all the time you need," Helen said. "The vote is tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, with or without you." They left. The building settled back into its usual hum. Air conditioning, distant traffic, the faint ring of someone's phone far down the hall. "Your father would be proud," Helen said at last. "Would he? You could have walked away quietly, paid them off, started fresh somewhere else," she said. "Instead, you chose to fight for what is yours." "That takes courage," Mom said. "It does not feel like courage," I told her. "It feels like survival." Helen gave a small smile, and for a moment I saw the woman who built this company from scratch, raised 3 kids alone, and never backed down from a fight. "Sometimes," she said, "they are the same thing." The vote was unanimous. Helen and I removed Daniel from the board, and under the bylaws his 40% reverted to the remaining shareholders. I now held 60% of Bennett Electric. Helen kept 40% until she decided to retire. Daniel reacted as expected. He hired a new attorney, filed an injunction, and threatened to sue everybody from me to the mail carrier. The proof was too strong, and his options were thin. Rachel got creative. She went after our daughters. I learned about it from Ava, who called me from school in tears. "Dad, Mom is here. She says she is taking us to live with her and Uncle Daniel. She has papers." I was in my truck before Ava finished. My heart hammered against my ribs. The papers Rachel waved around were fake. Aaron confirmed it with one phone call to the courthouse. That did not stop Rachel from causing a scene in the principal's office. When I walked in, Rachel was shouting at the principal, the school secretary, and anyone who would listen. She demanded our daughters, threatened lawsuits, and made the kind of spectacle that gets whispered about at parent-teacher association meetings for years. "Rachel," I said softly from the doorway. She spun, cheeks flushed, hair out of place. "Mark, tell them they have to let me take my girls." "Our girls," I said. "And no, I will not. I am their mother. You are also the woman who abandoned them to shack up with my brother. The woman who chose an affair over her family. The woman who just tried to take them with forged documents." The principal, Mrs. Henderson, a veteran of 30 years dealing with tough parents, stepped between us. "Mr. Bennett, we have called the police. They should arrive shortly." "Good," I said. "Rachel, you need to leave. I am not going anywhere without my daughters." "Yeah," I said, "you are." 2 officers arrived about 10 minutes later. They took statements, checked the fake custody forms, and arrested Rachel for attempted kidnapping and forgery. As they led her down the hall in handcuffs, her shouts echoed off the lockers. Ava and Zoe watched from the office window, pale and stunned. "Is Mom going to jail?" Zoe asked. "For tonight, probably," I said. "After that, it is up to the judge." "Good," Ava whispered. "I hope she stays there." That evening, the 3 of us ate pizza in the living room and tried to pretend it was a normal night. The girls did homework. I answered emails and returned client calls about the company shake-up. Around 9 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. Through the peephole, I saw 2 faces I did not expect. Tom and Jennifer Martinez, our couple friends for over 5 years. "Mark," Jennifer said when I opened up. "We heard about the school. We wanted to make sure you and the girls are all right." I let them in, poured coffee, and waited for the real reason. It did not take long. "We also want to talk about, well, everything," Tom said. "With Rachel and Daniel and the divorce." "Okay." Jennifer twisted her wedding ring. I had seen that move before when things got hard. "We have been friends with both of you for a long time, and this is awkward for everyone." "I am sure it is." "Rachel called us," Tom said. "She is really upset. She says you are being vindictive. She says you are turning everyone against her." I set my mug down and studied their faces. Tom looked uneasy. Jennifer looked guilty. They had already made their choice. "What exactly did Rachel tell you?" I asked. "That I planted evidence to make it look like an affair? That I am using money and connections to ruin her reputation? That I am blocking her from seeing her own daughters? And you believe that?" They glanced at each other. "We do not know what to believe," Jennifer said. "But Rachel is our friend too, and she is in a bad place. She needs support. She needs consequences," I said. "There is a difference." Tom leaned forward. "Look, Mark, we are not taking sides. We just think you could dial back the legal stuff a bit. Let her see the girls. Work something out without lawyers and court dates." "Tom," I said, "did Rachel tell you I have security footage of her and Daniel in my office? Did she mention the forged custody papers she used to try to take Ava and Zoe? Did she explain why she picked my brother instead of talking to me like an adult about whatever was wrong?" Silence. "I did not think so," I said, standing. "Here is the thing about not taking sides. When someone is clearly in the wrong, neutrality is just cowardice with nicer packaging." Jennifer's face flushed. "That is not fair." "Fair," I said. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been my wife speaking to me instead of sleeping with my brother. Fair would have been friends asking for my side before walking in here to lecture me about being vindictive. Fair would have been anyone caring what this has done to my daughters." Tom stood, too. "We are trying to help." "No," I said. "You are trying to feel better about choosing the wrong side. There is a difference." They left without another word. Through the front window, I watched them sit in their car for a few minutes, probably deciding I had turned into a bastard, that the divorce had changed me, that they tried to help, but I was too angry to hear it. An hour later, my phone started buzzing. More texts from more couples with the same theme. Maybe I should try mediation. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe Rachel deserved another chance. By midnight, 8 different people had explained how they would run my life better than I was. I turned the phone off and checked on my daughters. They had finally fallen asleep after a day that felt like a year. Ava was curled up with a book open beside her. Zoe had passed out in her track uniform, too tired to change. These were my people, not the friends who cared more about avoiding awkwardness than standing up for the truth. Not the brother who sold me out. Not the wife who walked away. Just 2 teenage girls who needed their father to be strong enough to shield them from the wreckage. I tucked them in, turned off the lights, and went downstairs to map the final phase of the war. 3 months later, the divorce was final. Rachel received nothing. No alimony. No property split. No custody beyond supervised visits every other weekend. The prenuptial agreement she signed 12 years ago was airtight, and her adultery voided the few crumbs it offered. Daniel's legal stunts collapsed when his own attorney saw the mess in the books. Those fake business trips? Paid with company funds. Equipment purchases he authorized? Routed to a shell company he created. When the forensic accountants finished, Daniel owed Bennett Electric more than $100,000 in embezzled money. I could have had him arrested. Instead, I gave him a choice: repay the funds and disappear, or face federal charges for wire fraud and embezzlement. He chose to disappear. He sold his house and moved to Arizona with what was left of his savings. Rachel lasted 2 weeks after Daniel left town. Without his money and with her reputation in tatters, she could not afford to stay. She moved back to her parents' home in Ohio, working the front desk at a dental office and sleeping in her childhood bedroom at 36. The friends who picked her side learned that support means staying in the boat when the water gets rough. Rachel's constant need for emotional reassurance, cash, and someone to blame wore them down in months. Most try to circle back to me eventually. I had learned the value of knowing who your real friends are when it is not easy. I made Mike my partner. I sold him a portion of my shares at true market value, and we set clear guardrails. Together, we grew Bennett Electric by 30%, landing 3 major contracts that Daniel's reputation would have cost us. The girls were doing well. Ava made the honor roll and joined the debate team, where her sharp mind and new understanding of people turned her into a force. Zoe broke 2 school track records and drew attention from colleges that never would have noticed before. On a Thursday evening in late fall, I was wrapping paperwork in my office when Mary knocked. "There is someone here to see you," she said. "He says it is personal." Tyler Brooks stood in the lobby looking older and worn, a long way from the slick man at that dinner that feels like another lifetime. The fancy clothes were gone, replaced by jeans and a work shirt. His too-white smile was nowhere to be seen. "Mark," he said, "thank you for seeing me." "I have not decided to see you yet," I said. "What do you want?" "To apologize," he said, "and to tell you the truth about what really happened." I studied his face for a long moment, then motioned toward my office. 5 minutes. Tyler sat across from my desk in the same chair Daniel had used during our last talk. Where Daniel had been smug and threatening, Tyler just looked worn out. "It was not Rachel's idea," he said without any warm-up. "The affair. It was Daniel's." "Explain," I said. "He came to me about 6 months before that dinner," Tyler said. "He knew about my past with Rachel. He knew I was broke. He offered me $10,000 to get close to her, to push her into leaving you." I felt something cold settle in my gut. "Why?" "He wanted control of the company," Tyler said. "If you were gone, he figured your mother would sell him her shares instead of running the business alone. He thought he would own the whole thing." "And you agreed?" Tyler nodded, eyes on the floor. "I was in trouble, Mark. 3 months behind on rent. About to lose my car. $10,000 looked like a winning lottery ticket. But it did not go the way he planned." "No," he said. "Rachel fell for it completely. She started talking about leaving you. About a future with me. Daniel never expected that. He wanted the scandal, not a love story." "So what went wrong?" "I did," Tyler said, finally looking up. "I started feeling guilty. About you. About your girls. I told Daniel I wanted out, that I wanted to tell you everything." He swallowed hard. "That is when he told me the truth," Tyler said. He had been sleeping with Rachel too. The room went very quiet. Outside, the city wound down for the night. Inside, only the hum of the lights and the weight of what he had said. "He was running both sides," Tyler continued. "He used me to pull Rachel away from you. He used Rachel to learn about your finances and your job bids. When I said I would come clean, he threatened to send me back to prison for violating parole." "Why tell me now?" I asked. "Because Daniel is gone. Rachel is gone," he said. "I am done carrying their secrets." He paused, searching for the right words. "And because you deserved better than what we did. All of us." I leaned back and took it in. His story did not change where things ended, but it did explain the gears and wires that tore my family apart. Daniel had not only betrayed me, he had engineered the whole thing, moving pieces until they lined up the way he wanted. "Thank you for telling me," I said at last. "That is it," he asked. "What did you expect? Absolution? Forgiveness?" I shook my head. You made decisions. Daniel, pulling strings does not erase the fact that you chose to dance. He nodded slowly. I know. I wanted you to know that not everyone lied to you out of hate. Some of us were too weak to do what was right. After he left, I stayed in my chair and watched the daylight fade from the windows. The building was empty except for me, quiet except for the steady sounds in the walls. I thought about current and resistance, about how electricity takes the easiest path unless you force it to do otherwise. Daniel had counted on that, on Rachel's vanity, on Tyler's desperation, on my trust. He built a tidy circuit to pull power away from me and route it to himself. But he made one mistake. He figured when the system overloaded, I would be the part that burned out. Instead, I was the surge protector. I sent that heat back to where it came from. I shut down the lights, locked the door, and drove home to my daughters, who were waiting with homework questions and stories to tell. We ate dinner together, watched a movie, and talked through their plans for the weekend. It was a good life. Not the one I drew up, but a straightforward life built on truth instead of tricks, on loyalty instead of betrayal. For the first time in months, that was enough.